Hey guys, it's Tiny Tom Logan back with another video for you, and this would normally be the point that I would show you a box and say that I'm looking at the Gigabyte G1 Sniper Z87, but in a very ghetto kind of retro-esque kind of manner. I've not done it like this for a long time. I've actually done the testing on the motherboard box. Now, as I'll explain to you later on, it's because I'm waiting for a case to turn up for us to be able to move into using cases for all of the reviews full time now. Because I'm retiring the test benches, because everyone wants to know what they work like when they're in their normal environment. So we're going to be starting to do that. So anyway, moving swiftly on, the Gigabyte G1 Sniper Z87, £116 this board is, and quite surprisingly, like I said, it comes with all the kind of things that we would expect from a G1 Sniper. We've got they've got the gold-plated sound core thing there, but they've got like a separate little graphics card bit down the left-hand side with a little LED ring. Black and green designing, heavily aimed at the gamers stroke gaming segment of the market. But they've managed to do that on an ATX board for 116 quid. Now, when you kind of say those type of things normally, I instantly start thinking, what could they really have cut off or trimmed down or done to those boards to have got that price down that far? And is it going to affect performance? So when Gigabyte started shouting about all these things at me and going, oh yeah, it's amazing, my brain instantly starts going, right, okay, I need to find out why it's so cheap. So that's what this review is about. What have they done to really be able to cut this down, and where, you know, are we going to be expecting lower overclocks? Are we going to be expecting lower frames per second? Are we going to be, you know, is it not going to last very long? Why is it, you know, so cheap? So with this review, we're going to try and find out. But what we're going to do is I'm going to give you a good up-close look at the board, not in a fitted state, because I've already filmed it and I'm just going to cut it in. Then we'll have a look at the actual test rig today, have a look at some bits on the BIOS and stuff and a couple of benchmarks, but then we'll do a nice extended conclusion. But the most important thing that you can do is click, and I seem to have remembered, I think the link is here. So I'm going to take a rough guess and say, click the link here. Lovely, lovely, woo. Click that link anyway, and it will go to the main review where you'll be able to look at the pictures if you'd like. But most importantly, for those of you that can read, you can go and look at all the graphs and see how this fares in all of our benchmarks. So, and it is quite surprising, as we'll get to in a conclusion, but it's worth seeing it in the graphs. But I'm going to hush my mouth, and we can move on. Right then, boys and girls, so moving on to a quick look at the board up close itself. Now, one of the things I will say, if I put it down, I just need to make sure that you can see what I'm on about, basically, because my camera thing was upside down. If you have a look up here, 1 screw hole, 2 screw hole. We'd normally be used to an extra screw hole for ATX. It's one of the slightly thinner boards. It's not a new thing. The Gigabyte HD3s like it. We've reviewed loads of boards over the years with this kind of format. So like I said, it's not a new thing, but it's just worth noting that it is, you know, compared to some other boards, it may look ever so slightly thinner. Certainly in a fat case, you'll notice the difference. But it's really kind of a real minimal thing. But anyway, first things first is to kind of point out we've got the audio trail here. And this lights up green. There are LEDs on the back. SMD, surface mount diodes. Anyway, they're all scattered down there. And it does, we've got some dip switches here for all kinds of stuff. We've got the O-amp that we can change, and professional caps and all kinds of stuff. Gold plated cover here for it's got Sound Core 3D written on it. I'll show you this lit up in a bit later on. While we've got it up at this kind of area though, if you have a look, we've got the 2 PCI Expresses here. This is 16, and this is wired 8, but if you run 2 cards, they both go down to 8. Then we've got 3 PCI Express 1s, but these are actually PCI Express 2 bandwidth. So it's PCI Express 2, but only 1 PCI Express lane. That's where the 1 comes from. And we've got a couple of legacy PCI lanes here, which we've not seen for a little while, to be fair. It almost feels like they've just kind of yomped them on there to fill the gap. But we've got 3 slots. If you have a look, 1, so that's your first slot, and then there's a 2 slot gap between. So if you've got a triple slot card, it'll be smack bang up against this one. If you've got a dual slot card, you will have this gap down the middle, so it's relatively well laid out for Crossfire or SLI. I would have preferred this green one to have been another slot down though, to be fair, so there's actual 3 proper lanes between the other one. It just means that you get a much better amount of gap. With a normal dual slot card you get much better gap, but we need to kind of remember this isn't like a stupid high-end mega, you know, expensive board. It is only 116 nicker. Also, if we have a look up here, obviously we've got the USB 3 on board and then 24 pin, but we've got a power switch, if I get it in shot, power switch, LCD poster, brilliant for fault finding if your overclock goes all bandy, CMOS clear switch, and then a reset switch. Just this little area up here is something that we've, you know, not really used to seeing on cheap boards, to be fair. And then if we have a look around the CPU area, again, it's not ram-packed with power phases and caps and chokes and all that kind of stuff. There's still a fair old meat around there. We've still got that second heatsink, and even that second heatsink can make it feel a lot more expensive than it actually is. But when we, if I just show you around the back, we've got 2 USB 2, oh, straighten up Tom, 2 USB 2s up here and then a PS2 port, gold plated digital out there. Then we've got HDMI full size display port, also gold plated. This is their USB DAC that they've got there. It's the digital audio codec thing and converter thing, and this is meant to have like real low latency and stuff. 2 USB 3s, 2 more USB 3s, Gigabit Ethernet, which is it's the I can't remember for the life of me now. It's really going to drive me cracker. Killer, that's it. The Killer E2200 networking. Still gigabit, but yeah, killer. And then we've got gold-plated audio here, and then your digital optical out as well. If I put it down, try and get it in a spot. There we go. That's roughly in the middle, isn't it? Yeah. It does look the part. It really looks the part, and it certainly looks like it's worth more than 116 quid. And I'm going to end up saying 116 pounds so much. I shouldn't be told these things till near the end. But it's just this. It does surprise me, and I'm kind of looking to try and find out what's wrong with it, because it seems too cheap. So is it a bargain, or is it like the bargain of the century, or is it a cut too far? I really can't wait to start testing this thing. Right then, boys and girls, moving on to a look at the test system. Yes, I know, it is very rough and ready, very much back to the old school, old day ways of doing things, but I'm just waiting for a couple of bits to turn up so that I can get things all looking pretty lovely and all that kind of shizness again. I'm currently running Noctuas on the graphics card heatsink because the actual fans on the card had died, but the card was fine, so I just kind of bodged those onto it. And I don't really like using test benches anymore because everyone says, oh no, want them in cases and all that kind of stuff, and I'm just waiting for another case to turn up because the 750 is currently being used. If I spin you around, current Fit 750 is currently there with the 780 Ti gigahertz in. So we've got one test rig there, and I wanted another 750 really, but I'm waiting for another case to come. But we're going to be moving on to cases for test systems full time now. But anyway, so test system today, 7970 there. We're running a H100i. We've got a 850 watt power supply. It's surprisingly not a Corsair one, but it's the one that was just attached to the test bench. That's actually the M80X test bench, which is now being stripped to be retired. Said H100i. Corsair Vengeance Pro is 2400 megahertz, but it's my gold kit. Although I normally would have changed these, but it was the closest. I have got silver ones that I could have stuck on the top, but anyway, they're gold. Then we've got Corsair 240 gigabyte solid state drive, and that's really about it other than the 2560 monitor. So right, yes, what we want to do, we've seen it like that, but you want to see the green LEDs for the board. What I'm going to do, surprisingly, is just take the graphics card out quickly. so that I can show you it in the dark and it's not covered, but then I'll show you something else in the dark as well. But this is our test system, 7970, you know, just to clarify and be 100% clear. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to move on to showing you it in the dark so that we can see the LED trail. Okay, so I've still got the background light on, so you can see ever so slightly the motherboard outline and everything, and I've done that on purpose. Just going to lean in and turn it on, and you can see the green LED trail down here, and also by it being ever so slightly lit, so just dark, you can still see my hand, lovely, and my watch. But anyway, so you can see the lovely, it's a real straight line really for the LED trail, but obviously there's a heavy green theme. The rig is actually starting up. There's a heavy green theme here. Now there was something I thought, ooh, that would look lovely with that, so I'm going to shut up and just drop it in quickly. So I've moved you slightly higher over the top this time to show you this. I'm just going to flick it on, and that's so that we can, this is a slightly more lime green than the line down the side, but nevertheless it's still green and I still think it looks rather awesome. Again, the rig's starting up, it's going to have a field day in a minute, but anyway, I really like the kind of look at this with the standard. This is a 770, but obviously the 770, the 780, the 780 ties, if you get a reference, they're all going to look like this. One thing I will say is if you're going to do this, I know it's, you know, we're talking about budgets and stuff like that, but 770 is as low as these green LEDs go, so you know, to balance with the board, maybe it'll be the one that you want. But a backplate would make a massive difference to, you know, cleaning lines up and stuff. But anyway, going on to personal preference and stuff, I just thought that would be a nice thing to show you. We'll see if turning the light off makes any difference. Now I've still got my Orca running behind with the screens on, but you kind of get a good representation there, I think. So I'm going to shush now. We're going to move on and take a look at the BIOS. Right then, boys and girls, on to the BIOS. As far as BIOSes go, this is one of the more graphical ones that I've seen. There's you know, you've got like a background image there and stuff. We've also got a lot more information than we used to having on the, what I'd call the home page, because we've got statuses all down the left hand side. Now I will say that a lot of this doesn't update. Like for argument's sake, if you change a setting in the BIOS, say for argument's sake you wanted to go to the CPU core clock ratio and change from 35 to 40 for 4 GHz, it won't change up here until you save it. So it's not like it's these represent what it's actually running at that moment in time. For if you change that to 40, you'd have to save it, which would mean saving and exiting for it to apply that clock, and then going back into the BIOS to see it up here. So right, just to show you a few things with the BIOS. Performance settings, you've got all your frequency settings there, memory settings, your voltage settings are in a second sub menu. One thing I will say about your voltages there, this load line calibration is for the V-ring, which is more of a cache and a memory style thing. There is no option there for load line calibration for the CPU V-core. And one thing I will say is it doesn't fucking need it. As you'll see later on, the voltage just stays exactly where you put it, just the way we want it. Don't need to turn it on, it works, boom, love it. There's PC health status over here, so you can go in and look at, oh Christ, let me click the right one. PC health status, so you can see whether the case is open, and temperature warnings and stuff like that you can set up yourself, and a miscellaneous tab. Anyway, so frequency, yes. System information, boom, there's a nice little calendar there. Right. BIOS features, peripherals, power management, and then save and exit. And on the save and exit is we've got profiles that you can load. As you can see, I've got my bench profile loaded up there, or in there, in case something had gone wrong and I need to go back and start again. But something I do want to talk about is here we have a performance upgrade button, and I would say personally don't use it. You've got 20, 40, 60 upgrade there, and then you've also got down here CPU upgrade, and you can go for 4.3, 4.4, 4.5. Now what I'm going to do is these are obviously pre-saved settings within the BIOS, because I've tried it with a couple of CPUs and it seems to use the same sort of voltages. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go here and I'm going to go up to 4.6 gigahertz and I'm going to boot in at that with you live on camera. So I'm just going to go F10, save and exit, boom, and we'll go into the BIOS. I'll talk to you while it's booting. Obviously that's now just turned off. The screen will eventually come back on again. There we go, boom, straight into that. It's actually a pretty quick booting system as well. Surprisingly quick, really. But what we're going to do is we're going to go over here now. No, hang on. Go away. Start again. Right. And I'm going to zoom you in. Whee! Right, there we go. And you can see that we've got 1.36 volts there for 4.6 gigahertz. Well, I happen to know that my CPU at 1.26 volts will do 4.9 gigahertz. So that's an enormous amount of volts. And this is another reason why you should never use the auto overclock features or any software or any pre-saved profiles. I'm going to shut this down now because I'm going to go in and turn that back off again. You should say, you know, never use profiles and stuff. Always go in and work out what your CPU does and needs manually. I have done guides on this, so go and look it up on the forums and on the website, because more volts mean more heat. Those kind of volts, I'm not really happy with going above 1.3 volts, let alone 1.36. It's just, it's like making me shiver in fear. And obviously with those kind of volts, you're going to need a really good CPU cooler. So by the time you've got that far, you might as well just do it properly. And like I said, that's putting a whole 1/10 of a volt extra through that CPU than is needed for a much higher overclock. So yeah, it's just something worth keeping in mind. Now that's not Gigabyte's fault, because some of the Haswell CPUs are shocking. It's you know, like I said, you just need to do it manually really, because they're trying to give you settings for CPUs that are so wildly different. It's really not Gigabyte's fault, it's actually Intel's. But anyway, I'm going to leave that section there. Overclocking is an absolute joy, by the way, and I did get 4.9 gigahertz stable, which is my CPU's maximum, at the same kind of volts that all of the expensive boards did as well. But I know it's getting kind of boring now staring at the logo on a desktop. In fact, what we'll do, just so that I can give you something graphical to look at, we're going to do a Cinebench run, and I'll do you an overclock Cinebench run. So I need to go in, apply the overclock, come back. So give me 2 seconds of your time and 30 seconds of mine. Right then peeps, just to prove my point about the CPU Z, look, you can see 1.258 volts, actually 1.26 in the BIOS, 4.9 gigahertz, go up to the memory, it says 1200, times that by 2 because it's DDR double data rate, so that's 2400 megahertz, memory's running at rated, we've got the North Bridge frequency or the V-ring or the cache or whatever you want to call it, running at 4 gigahertz, which is an auto kind of like turbo mode for this, because it goes up from 3.5 up to 4 gigahertz. So lovely. Anyway, so right, that was there, 4.9 gigahertz, lovely, easy. Now I'll cut the screen back out, and I'm just going to run Cinebench for you because it's quite a graphical benchmark. There's 8 little boxes there, one for each of the threads on the CPU. And it eventually builds the picture, renders the picture, and we'll start spinning round. So remembering we've got a 4770K in there at 4.9 gigahertz. Right, that's it, we're done, and we've got a score of 10.75 for the 4770K, which over 10 is a pretty damn good clock and score there. Any of the people out that use Cinebench, 3D rendering tools, you know, stuff like that, which actually render stuff, they'll understand the importance of a high Cinebench score. So for a 4770K to be putting out those sort of numbers is pretty good. And you're normally looking at high 8s for a stock one, so that's pretty damn good. Like I said, it was just a visual representation. All the other benchmarks, really, it's a shame we haven't got anything that we can show you, but don't forget to click down in the bottom left hand corner to go and look at all the benchmarks results in the review. But we'll talk about all the results and stuff in the conclusion at the end. So yeah, time for me to be quiet and move on. Okie dokie then, peeps, you've made it to the conclusion. So let's have a chat about, well, we'll do what we always do, and we always start with the awards, and then we'll move on to why, explanations, a little bit more of a dig into benchmarks and the like. So G1 Sniper Z87, 116 quid. We're going to give it Gamer's Choice and Value for Money award. Now I have to admit, we were kind of umming and ahhing about the awards and how we were going to structure this, but to be fair, they are almost like no-brainer awards for this. We could have given it gold, we could have given it performance, but there's reasons why we can't and we couldn't, and why we should give it the other ones. But you've only really got to think about it to understand why. It is gold worthy, but we felt that the value for money was an absolute no-brainer with it. But also because of the price and the market that it's aimed at, again, we decided to give, rather than give it the gold, we decided to give it to the Gamer's Choice as well, because like I said, it really is such a good little board. The price, as I said to you, I was wondering why it was so cheap. And to be fair, other than the fact that it's, because you have a normal ATX, and as I said in a little bit in you know, when I looked at it up close, with a normal ATX you have 3 screws across the top. This one's only got the 2, so it's slightly narrower ATX, but it's still technically an ATX board. It's ATX length, it's just not quite as wide. It's almost like the difference between ATX and EATX. EATX has that little kind of extra width. This is kind of the opposite way round, where it's slightly narrower. So they've saved a bit of silicon there. And the best way I can explain this board, it's almost like the HD3, or is it the H38? No, it's the HD3, which is Gigabyte's slightly narrower board. It's almost like that board has had babies with the UD3H, which is like 100, 140 quid. And this is kind of the green monster that's kind of come out of it, and it's, you know, a newer, improved, and kind of like almost like 2 superheroes kind of having babies, and then the baby has different powers, because this is kind of popped out with better audio and stuff. Now the only other board that they've got with this in this audio really in the lineup is the M5, and that's what, 140 quid as well, and that's only M80X. That if you want to get this audio on one of the bigger boards, you have to go up to the fully fledged Sniper, which is what, like 200 quid? So we'll say twice the price. It's a little bit off, but anyway, 75% extra. So really the audio and everything, again, I don't think it should be on there for this money. So when it comes to the overclocking, I was instantly expecting it's not going to overclock very well. And I kind of had in my head, I'd like to see 4.6 gigahertz around 1.25 volts. And I thought to myself, if it does that, I'd be kind of happy. So I wasn't prepared for it to pump out the same kind of overclocks that we've had with all the other boards. So, and not only did it pump out the overclocks the same as all the other boards, it also did it at the same volts with no V-droop. And it was just like, the fuck? Pardon, sorry, what please? It was brilliant, and also with the, once that overclock was applied, it was up there at the top of our tables. Not the very top, but it was up there trading blows with all the other bigger boards. Now with stuff like this, you know, we might have been able to have tweaked things to have got more out of it, but it's up there with the normal kind of settings and stuff that we would always run with the other boards. It's up there at the top of the graph. So I think that's about all you could really expect from a 116 quid board as well. The stock results, so dropping the CPU in, letting it run and just kind of running away with it, the results were, I'll say, average. They weren't at the top, they weren't at the bottom, they were kind of above middle of the tables. But some of the boards that we've tested do like, and with the turbo ratio, they run the CPU just at the maximum CPU turbo ratio across, rather than one core, they do it on all the cores. MSI specifically do that, which is why the MSI stock stuff is just always brilliant. But this didn't do that. So the fact that the scores were kind of right up there, again, it does show you know, that it's a very good, you know, and well placed board. I did do some memory tests on this as well. I did drop the 2666 kit that I've got in this. Now the reason why we don't run the 2666 kit in the benchmarks is because we didn't have it right at the beginning, and we started with the Corsair Vengeance Platinum, and we started with that, and we've done all of our benches with that. But again, 2666 it didn't have a problem with at all. That all went went straight in. XMP went straight in. The manual settings and stuff all went straight in, so there's no kind of memory problems or anything there. It's actually a little cracker. I'm really massively surprised with it. Now, with this board being this cheap, it makes you think, you know, do you want to put a K-series CPU in it? Because obviously the K-series CPUs are all going to be much more expensive than your board. But as I've shown you, if you've got the money, you can do, and you'll also be able to overclock it as well. Please, if you do overclock though, don't use the things in the BIOS where, you know, like percentage boost or CPU upgrade, because it will overvolt your CPU probably more than it needs to. Go in and follow the guides that we've done in the past. Manually do your voltage settings, because voltage means heat, and it can also mean long term that it will be killing your CPU off. So if you do it manually, you'll know that you're running the lowest voltage that you possibly can be to have it stable, and also that will mean that your temperatures will be lower as well, because an up in the voltage can make a massive difference in temps with these CPUs. I know I've got a cracker, 1.26 volts, 4.9 gigahertz is an absolute barnstormer for these, but to kind of put things into context, people think, oh yeah, well, if you do that, if you were going to run 1.4 volts, you'd be able to get 5 gigahertz. No, it's just not in this chip. You need, I've gone, you know, I've tried with silly cooling to get more out of this chip, and it just doesn't do it. So that's why we've got this kind of, this low voltage and this nice setting, and it's a good way to try and separate the boards as well. So anyway, cracking little overclocker, pumps out really good bench numbers. Gaming was absolutely where we would have expected both times round. Then you talk about the audio, which is brilliant. You can still change the flipping OAMP and everything on it. Got the nice little green LED, gold connectors, the USB DAC thing. It's just like, really, all of this for this kind of money? Anyway, so absolutely no-brainer gamer's choice, because let's face it, the snipers have always been aimed at the gamers, and with the green it's always built to want to, you know, be teamed up with an NVIDIA card. It doesn't mean that you can't drop one of the R9 AMDs in it either, but anyway, the green colouring is there. Lots of people do like the green colouring as well, and I think this is kind of made, because you can obviously get cheap black and red boards. There's loads of them about. They're kind of $2 a penny now. There's, you know, lots of different kind of options that you get. But the sniper stuff's always been expensive. So for Gigabyte to bring in something which, let's face it, is so competitive on price that it almost makes buying their more expensive ones a little bit of a, why would you want to do it other than a spec list? Because they're putting out the same sort of numbers and they're delivering the same sort of stuff. Also, the SLI and Crossfire spacing is perfect, because if you've got a 3-slot card, then it will obviously be smack bang up against your next card. But most of us have got dual slot cards, which means we're going to have a good single gap between the two cards, which means they'll be able to breathe. So even that side of things, it could have been a little bit better and moved down by the two legacy things. But you know, I mean, that's us being properly picky then. But really, gamer's choice, value for money, because it is obscene value for money, and it's a perfect gamer's board. Whether you're a fit and forget or you're a fiddler, so you want to get in there and tweak and stuff, this board is more than likely going to do more than you'll ever want to get out from it. So the fact it comes in at that low price is just like, nice one. So this really is thoroughly recommended by me, because it's just, once you start to pay more for the boards than this, no matter what manufacturer that you want to buy from, you really are buying what gets packaged with the board. So by that I mean maybe a slightly better audio card that's built in or something, or layout, or some of the boards have got onboard water cooling and stuff like that. But you know, like I've shown, if you just want to put a graphics card in it and overclock your CPU, this is done as good as all of the other boards that we've ever really tested, because it's got the most out of the CPU that we have here. So it's going to be more than capable of getting the most out of yours as well. So like I said, once you get beyond this point, you just end up buying either something that comes in the box, a slightly better layout on the board, or a feature on the other boards that you can't live without. Maybe you want, let's say, a red and black board and you want Gigabyte, then you're just going to have to buy the UD4H. It really does get to that point, and it just goes to show that even though it's only got a £116 price tag, this board still has, you know, as much to offer as all the other boards. So it's kind of a bit mental. Anyway, I know I'm going to end up starting to go round and round in circles now, but thoroughly deserves those 2 awards. I've actually really enjoyed working on this one because it surprised me in the fact that I wasn't expecting it to be this good. And I mean, I was not expecting it to be anywhere near this good. I was hoping and praying that it would do 4.6 gigahertz so that I'd be able to have, you know, something remotely nice to say about it. The fact that it's chucked out these 4.9 scores and kept all the same volts and stable and all that kind of stuff has actually surprised me to the point that I was like, fuck, what? Really? That's never going to be stable. I'm going to have to put the volts up. No, absolutely kick bolt. Go on, Tom. Fucking, you know what I mean? I'm waiting around here. You're not even really stressing me. I was massively surprised. So I'm not going to carry on going round in circles anymore. I'm going to love you and leave you. But this is the Gamer's Choice and Value for Money award-winning Gigabyte G1 Sniper Z87 board, which, if I've not said it enough times already, is only 116 quid at the time of making the video. I believe Scan have got it at 116 in case anyone in the UK is asking. But for now at least, this is Tiny Tom Logan with another video for you. Out.